In this video, we shall discuss rules of inference in propositional logic. The term inference means conclusion based on some premises or hypothesis. So, set of premises or hypothesis together with a conclusion is called an argument. So, rules of inferences are used to find validity of an argument. That means conclusion based on some set of premises or hypothesis. So before discussing rules of inference, we must know what is an argument in propositional logic. So an argument in propositional logic is nothing but a sequence of propositions such that all but the final proposition are called premises and the final proposition is called the conclusion. In short, an argument is a conclusion based on some premises. Okay, so together they form an argument. For example, if I go swimming, then I will stay in the sun too long. This is one premise or statement or proposition. If I stay in the sun too long, then I will sunburn. This is another premise or proposition. Therefore, if I go swimming, then I will sunburn. So, in this proposition, we have many compound propositions. So, this is first proposition. We have compound proposition. This is another compound proposition. And therefore, so the proposition after this, therefore, if I go swimming, then I will sunburn. This is called the conclusion. So we have a set of premises or set of propositions or set of compound propositions followed by a conclusion. Okay, so whatever is there after this therefore is called conclusion. This may also be written like this. You may be given an argument like this: if I go swimming, then I will stay in the sun too long. If I stay in the sun too long, then I will sunburn. And this line separating the premises and the conclusion: if I go swimming, then I will sunburn. So the compound proposition after this line is the conclusion, and above this line are the premises. Okay, so this is structure of an argument in propositional logic. You will be given a set of premises or sequence of premises or sequence of propositions followed by a conclusion. So our purpose is to find whether this conclusion is valid or not. Okay, so rules of inferences help us to find whether an argument is valid or not. So whenever we find that the conclusion follows from the premises or the truth values of premises, or whenever the premises are true, then conclusion is also true, then such arguments are called valid arguments. So rules of inference help us to find validity of an argument. Now, before finding validity of an argument, we must convert this argument into symbolic form, which is also called argument form. So what is an argument form? An argument form in propositional logic is a sequence of compound propositions involving propositional variables. For example, if we have P1, P2, Pn as the premises and Q as the conclusion, then the argument form of the argument is written like this. So here we write a sequence of propositions which are premises, and we use the symbol to separate the conclusion. So after this symbol, whatever is there is called the conclusion, and before this symbol, whatever is there is called premises. Okay, for example, in the above example, if I take P1 as I go swimming, P2 is I stay the sun in the sun too long. P3 I get sunburn. Then the above argument may be written as P1 implies P2. That means if I go swimming, then I stay in the sun too long. Then second premise is if I stay in the sun too long, I get sunburn. Therefore, conclusion is if I go swimming, then I get sunburn. So this is the argument form. This is called the argument form of the argument. So before finding the validity of an argument, we must convert a given argument in this form, right? Now what are valid and invalid arguments? An argument is called valid if the truth of all its premises imply that the conclusion is true. In short, if truth values of all the premises gives the conclusion, or the conclusion is drawn from the premises, then the argument is called a valid argument. And if the conclusion is not drawn from the truth values of premises, then the argument is called invalid. Okay, in other words, an argument P1 P2 up to Pn with conclusion Q is valid if and only if P1 and P2 and P3 up to Pn implies Q is a tautology. That means for all truth values of P1 P2 up to Pn, the conclusion is true. So if this is a tautology, then the argument is called a valid argument. Otherwise it is called an invalid argument. That means for some truth values of P1 P2 up to Pn, conclusion may not follow. And an invalid argument is also called a fallacy, right? So a valid argument is the argument in which the conclusion is followed from the premises or truth values of premises. Now what are the rules of inference for propositional logic? The rules of inference in propositional logic are the argument forms that establish the validity of an argument without using the truth table. So to find the validity of an argument, we must assign truth values to each and every premise, and then we see whether conclusion follows or not. This is one way. You can prepare truth table and you can see whether that argument form is tautology. But there is another way. We can use rules of inference. That means rules of inferences are certain arguments or argument forms that establish the validity of an argument without using the truth table. So there you will not be required to use truth table, and without using the truth table you can find whether an argument is valid or not. Okay, these rules can be used as building blocks to construct more complicated argument forms and valid arguments. So sometimes they can give or simplify a given argument, or you can combine two or more premises to get a valid argument, right? So following are the rules of inferences. So the following are the tautology used as the rule of inference. So first is P and P implies Q. These two premises gives the conclusion Q. So this is P and P implies Q. Implies Q is a tautology. This is a tautology and its name is modus ponens. So you can verify this is a tautology. So this can be taken as rule of inference, which is called modus ponens. Second is negation Q and P implies Q. Give the conclusion negation P. So this is a tautology. So you can verify this is a tautology. This is called modus tollens. So there are other rule of inference. P implies Q, Q implies R. give conclusion P implies R, because this is a tautology. You can prepare to table and you can verify. This is called hypothetical syllogism. Then P or Q and negation P give the conclusion Q. This is tautology. So this is called disjunctive syllogism. P gives the conclusion P or Q, or P implies P or Q is a tautology, which is called addition. P and Q give conclusion P. So P and Q implies P is a tautology. This is called simplification. You can also get Q from here. If you write Q and P, then conclusion will be Q. Then P and Q give conclusion P and Q, because P and Q implies P and Q. This is called conjunction. Then finally P or Q negation P or R gives conclusion Q or R. This is called resolution. So these are tautologies which you can use as rules of inference. So these will be used as rules of inference to find validity of an argument. Okay, so these are rules for propositional logic, rules of inference for propositional logic. Now we turn our attention to quantified statements. Similarly, we have rules of inference for quantified statements. So first rule of inference for quantified statement is universal instantiation. This is different from rules of inference of propositional logic. So the universal instantiation is the rule of inference to conclude that PC is true from the given premise for all x px. So whenever you are given for all x px, that clearly means that P of C is true for any C in the domain. So whenever you are given that Px is true for all x, you can choose any x, or you can assign any value to x. So we assign here C, so it will be true for x equal to C, okay, in the domain. So for all x px gives conclusion PC, where C is any arbitrary element in the domain, not particular, it is an arbitrary element. This is called universal instantiation. For example, let Px be the statement bird X can fly, or you can take domain to be domain consists of all birds. Then Px will be bird X can fly, where the domain is all birds. Then from this premise for all x px all birds can fly, you can conclude that peacock can fly, or you can take parrot can fly, or you can take pigeon can fly, or you can take any other bird. So from for all x px you can conclude this, right? Similarly, in second example, let qx x knows programming, where the domain is all students of this class. Then from for all x px every student knows programming. What is the meaning of for all x px? Every student knows programming. We can conclude that p lx knows programming. Lx is particular student of this class, so you can take any student in place of lx, that will be true. Similarly, if we take sx, where x is a student of this class, dx x takes discrete mathematics course, where the domain is all people. In the previous example, domain was all students of your class. Here domain is all people. Okay, in addition to the students, we have other people also. Then from for all x, sx implies dx. What is the meaning of this? Every x, if a student of this class, takes discrete mathematics course. So from this we can conclude that Ln is a student of this class implies Ln takes discrete mathematics course. If Ln is a student of this class, then he takes discrete mathematics course, right? So Ln is one of the person from this domain. So one of the person from the domain, if he is a student of this class, then he takes discrete mathematics course. This is universal instantiation. Next is universal generalization. So universal generalization is the rule of inference that states that for all x px is true, given the premise that pc is true for any arbitrary element c from the domain. So whenever you are given that pc is true for any arbitrary, not specific, but arbitrary element from the domain, then you can conclude that px is true for all x. That means pc for an arbitrary element c in the domain gives the conclusion for all x px. This is called universal generalization. For example, let pc, any student c knows programming, then for all x px every student x knows programming, where the domain is of all students in this class. Okay, so if you know that any student c knows programming, then you can conclude that for all x px or every student x knows programming. Similarly, if you take sx to be x is a student of this class, px x knows programming, where the domain is all people. That means we enlarge the domain. In addition to the students, we take all other people also. Then from sc implies pc, any c if a student of this class, or any person c if a student of this class knows programming. So from here you can conclude that for all x, if a student of this class, then he knows the programming. This is called universal generalization. The next is existential instantiation, which says that existential instantiation is the rule that allows us to conclude that if the premise there exists x px is true, then there is an element c, not arbitrary, in the domain for which pc is true. So c is a particular element of the domain, not arbitrary. That means there exists x px such that pc. That means pc is the conclusion followed from there exists x px for some element c. This c is usually not known, but to continue with an argument, we give it a name. For example, let sx, x is a student of this class, px, x knows programming, where the domain is all people. Then from this premise, there exists x, sx and px. There is a student x in this class who knows programming. We can conclude that sc and pc, where c is some particular student, c is a student of this class who knows programming. We don't know who is c, but we are sure that there is some student c who is a student of this class and who knows the programming. That means there is some person from the domain who is a student of this class and who knows the programming. This is called existential instantiation. Then what is existential generalization? Existential generalization is the rule of inference that is used to conclude that if the premise pc is true for a particular element c, then there exists x px is true. Okay, so here pc for some element c in the domain, then the conclusion is there is exists x px. That means if we know that the premise p is true for some element c, then we can generalize, or we can generalize it as there exists x px. Okay, for example, let sx, x is a student of this class, px, x knows programming, where the domain is all people. Then from this premise as Lisa and p Lisa, That means Lisa is a student of this class and she knows programming. Lisa is a student of this class and knows programming. From this we can conclude that there is a student in this class who knows programming. So there exists X such that Sx means a student of this class and Px and knows programming. Okay, so this is called universal existential generalization. Okay, existential generalization. The next is universal modus ponens. Universal modus ponens says that if for all x px implies qx and p of a for some particular a in the domain are true, then q of a is true. That means for all x, if px implies qx and pa for some particular element a, then qa. This is called universal modus ponens. For example, every individual who is above 18 years of age can vote. Atul is 21 years old, therefore Atul can vote. So from these two premises, every individual who is above 18 years of age can vote, and Atul is 21 years old, therefore Atul can vote. This is true. So let Px, x is above 18 years of age, Qx, x can vote, where domain is set of all people. Then for all x, if Px implies Qx, that means if the person is above 18 years of age, then he can vote. P of Atul, that means Atul is above 18 years of age, that means 21 years old, then Q Atul, that means Atul can vote. Okay, so Atul is of 21 years old, therefore he can vote. This is called universal modus ponens. Similarly, we have universal modus tollens. This rule tells us that if for all x px implies qx and negation qa for some particular a in the domain are true, then negation pa is true. That means for all x px implies qx and negation qa, then conclusion is negation pa. For example, every individual who is above 18 years of age can vote. Amit cannot vote, therefore Amit is not above 18 years of age. So again, if we take px to be x is above 18 years of age, qx, x can vote, then for all x px implies qx and negation q Amit cannot vote. This means Amit cannot vote. Then conclusion is Amit is not above 18 years of age. Okay, this is called universal modus tollens. Then next is universal transitivity. The universal transitivity tells us that if for all x px implies qx and for all x qx implies rx are true, then for all x px implies rx is true, where domains of all quantifiers are the same. That means for all x px implies qx and for all x qx implies rx, give the conclusion for all x px implies rx. For example, every student of this class has taken discrete mathematics course. Every student of the class who takes discrete mathematics studies Java. Therefore, every student of this class studies Java. So let Sx, x is a student of this class, Bx, x takes discrete mathematics course, and Jx, x studies Java. Then, where the domain is all students at your college, then for all x is a student of your class, then he studies discrete mathematics or takes discrete mathematics. And for all x, if takes discrete mathematics, then studies Java. This implies that for all x, if a student of your class, then he studies Java. He or she studies Java. Okay. Then rules of inference for quantified statements can be summarized in this table. So all those rules which we have studied about quantified statements can be written in this table. So you can remember this table. Okay. So in this table you get all the rules of inference for quantified statements. So in the next video we will discuss how to use them, or we will take examples based on rules of inference for propositional logic and for quantified statements. So I hope you understood what I have told you in this video. Thanks for watching.